Oh, welcome to this, our finale. Today we're doing Drawing Prompt 200 in our drawing prompt book. Today we officially finished the book. Let's take a look at what we did. The drawing prompt is Skyline. It's drawing prompt 200. And we drew the skyline of Manhattan with the Brooklyn Bridge in the foreground. If you want to see how we did it, stay tuned. Well, today's prompt is Skyline, and we're going to go with the skyline of Manhattan, which is what everybody's going to pick. But we're also going to include in the foreground a little sketch of the Brooklyn Bridge. Very interesting engineering feat. You can find a million photographs of what we're going to draw today right in your phone. Let's knock off the chit chat and get to work. Well, I've been working on this for about 45 minutes. This is one of the towers, and then this is the Manhattan side here. And we're standing over in Brooklyn. We're looking down on part of the bridge and up on the other part. But trying to get all this perspective right has been right at the limit of my ability. The Brooklyn Bridge was built by a guy named Washington Roebling, and you've probably heard the story. His father was a famous bridge engineer who gained fame, I guess, when he built a suspension bridge in Cincinnati, Ohio, between Cincinnati and Covington. And so when they needed a bridge across the East River in excuse me, in New York City, he got tagged for the job. Now, when John Roebling died, the project really didn't suffer a whole lot because his son, was able to take over, and he was obviously a pretty capable fella. In order to build this, you can see how the towers here go into the river, and they're down 40, 50 feet underwater. And in order to build those foundations for the towers, they put down what are called caissons. which are big watertight containers. But to keep the water out, they pressurized the caissons. Well, what that did, it basically equalized the pressure to whatever depth the water was. And guys were staying down there for their shift, and a lot of them would come out after their shift. They'd have these pains in their joints, and I mean, sometimes it was debilitating. And this is a time before workman's compensation and all that stuff. You know, if you got hurt on the job, it was just tough luck. And it was named Caisson's disease. And they did realize that if you decompress slowly, they didn't know how long, but you know, if you slowly back the pressure off, it was better. Well, what happened is Washington Augustus Roebling, he went down in the caisson and spent a full 12-hour shift in the caisson. And then he didn't properly decompress, and he was, it just about killed him. He was bedridden for years. So there's Washington Roebling, bedridden, incapacitated. And now for the rest of the story. His wife, Emily, you know, under the direction of her husband, kind of took over the job as chief engineer of the project. There was some other drama involved the building. First of the Brooklyn Bridge. First one took 13 years to build, which is a pretty long time. I think the Cincinnati Bridge only took like 5 years. The Cincinnati Bridge isn't as big. I think it's about 500 feet shorter. But one of the main things is that they discovered that some of the steel they were using for the wire. See, these bridges are held up by these big woven wire cables. You know, that's how the Golden Gate Bridge is held up, and almost all suspension bridges are that way. Sometimes they have solid cables, but most of the time they're woven wire. I think they call it braided wire. And they discovered that the steel was defective, but you know, standard engineering practice, you know, they have some fancy engineering word for it, but the standard practice is to build in a fudge factor. You know, if you figure the steel has to be, you know, stand 100 psi, you put a fudge factor of 200 psi. So you need 100, you build it at 200. And I think just about all civil engineering projects are built that way. They overbuild them. You can't hardly do that with airplanes because it'd be too heavy, but for civil engineering projects. So that was his saving grace there. You know, the steel was defective, but he had put such a, I don't remember what the fudge factor is that he put in there, but it was pretty substantial. Oh, there's our drawing. I'm going to put the cables in after I do the background, and it'll be, those will be the last things I put in. So there'll be more in the foreground. I got the sky in. What I think I'm going to do is wait and not put the water in until I get the buildings and the bridge done, so I can get the reflection right down here. I'm just going through and drawing each building kind of individually. I'm coloring in the main tower here. Got to make sure this is right, because this is kind of the main thing you're looking at. Well, I got the main tower in. I got the tower in the background in too. Now I got to work on the main deck here. I think I'll put the railing in first. I'm just going to put the railing in ink. It's got a slight curve to it. It's not real noticeable, but I put that in there. You may think, well, gee, those guys from the 19th century, they were sure smart, inventing suspension bridges. Well, they took them to the suspension bridges probably to the limit, but they didn't invent them. You can go to the most primitive and uncontacted people in the world, and one thing you'll notice is that they've already invented suspension bridges. Okay, there's another chance to screw up. Here we go. I want to get one shot at this. Well, I got the bridge in there and the guy wires. These vertical wires, there's actually many more of them than I got in here, but if I put them all in, you couldn't even see the bridge. Okay, let's work on the water. Now I put the colors in the water here for the building reflections, and my theory is that I should be able to color in some watercolor, some blue, maybe some green, and kind of leave the buildings show. Now I put these ripples in. I think I need to, make the ripples level, and the far away ripples there'll be a lot of them. But then as I get closer, then they get farther apart. Well, that does it for Memphis drawing. Today we did the last prompt in our book, drawing prompt 200. The drawing prompt was Skyline, and we drew the Brooklyn Bridge with the skyline of Manhattan in the background. Alrighty. That'll do it for our drawing prompt book. Thanks for watching.